Hey everybody, T-Man here, bringing you guys another video, and this one is going to be about how I would have booked WrestleMania 30, and this is going to be the first of my fantasy booking segments that I want to start doing. Like, I like to do different things, like my match of the weeks and superstar profiles that I started doing with Vince McMahon, John Cena. I did CM Punk was more just about the interview. I did a Brock Lesnar one. This is going to be the first of a fantasy booking, going back to a certain period of time, and how I would have booked it different. This one's going to be about how I would have booked a WrestleMania 30. And I'm not going to change all the storylines, just a couple minor tweaks, how it could have been better than it really was. And I'm doing, the reason why I'm doing WrestleMania 30 is because if you guys have been seeing any of my recent videos, I've been doing a lot about how WWE is not the same, and I've been doing a lot about how Vince McMahon is out of touch of wrestling. And here's what I think would have been a better wrestling storyline going in the WrestleMania 30. I've said this in other videos. Now let's get in about how I would book this particular pay-per-view going back in that time frame, almost a year ago now. I've said it in a past video before, and I'll say it again. WrestleMania main event should always be the two hot things going in the company at the time. Vince McMahon wanted it to be Batista and Randy Orton. They were not the two hottest things going on at that time whatsoever. And it did ended up being a triple threat match, as you guys know. Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, and Batista. And Triple H also wrestled Daniel Bryan earlier on, just for Triple H to wrestle at WrestleMania, because he fucks Vince McMahon's daughter and married to her. Good for him. But there was really no reason for him to be on the card. And he was originally supposed to wrestle CM Punk originally, but we all know the story there. CM Punk said, "Go fuck yourself, I'm out." And so Triple H still wanted to book himself into a match at WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania and he's fucking Stephanie. Good for him. And now here's how I would have booked this pay-per-view different. Like I said, you had the two hottest things going on at the company. Who was that? It was CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. And CM Punk kind of mentioned this a little bit in his podcast with Colt Cabana a week ago. He said, you know, you guys could have booked me like a Shawn and Brett. That's exactly what I would have did for WrestleMania 30. I understand Randy Orton was the champion. What I would have did was I would have had CM Punk beat Randy Orton. If not at the Royal Rumble, probably maybe that next pay-per-view, Elimination Chamber, would have had CM Punk beat Randy Orton there. And Randy Orton was kind of the authority, so that would have made sense with the storyline, because if you remember, Kane eliminated him. They could have tweaked a couple things. They could have CM Punk win. Of course, no-brainer. Daniel Bryan, as we all know, should have won last year's Royal Rumble. Would have been perfect. You guys could have put the two baby faces together. It could have been like a Shawn or Brett, like a Austin or Rock, two guys that were fan favorites, and I think those matches would have been not quite like Austin and Rock, but more like Brett and Shawn, because they both can work their asses off. Not saying Austin and Rock couldn't, but I'm just saying these guys were the cream of the crop, you know, of not just characters at the time, but wrestlers. So I would have booked CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, and I would have had Daniel Bryan to go over. Another thing I would have did was I would have had I would have still did the triple threat match. I would have had Orton and Batista because I'm just tweaking things a little bit. I'm not rescheduling everything. I'm just saying how it should have been, and this was realistic into the storyline. It should have been Orton, Batista, and Triple H at WrestleMania 30, and you guys could have booked it big. I mean, you know how they like going back, swinging back old school. You could have said Evolution explodes at WrestleMania 30, you know, and that would have still gave Triple H his, because I know him, he always wants to wrestle. So you have to book smart. I would have had that match. Everything else, I would have probably left the same. You know, the Brock Undertaker. Then you had the Cena Bray Wyatt, John Cena. I might have had Bray Wyatt go over John Cena, because then that would have solidified Bray Wyatt. Because right now, I feel like I love Bray Wyatt. I like what they're doing with him. They're giving him great storylines. They're doing all this, but you need something to solidify him. as a main eventer. And yeah, putting them against John Cena is a big deal at the biggest show of shows, WrestleMania. But I would have had him go over, because that was like, wow, he didn't just have a match with Cena at WrestleMania. He beat Cena, and then you could have had Cena get the revenge the next month, and could have had John Cena beat Bray Wyatt the next pay-per-view, Extreme Rules or whatever that was. And everything else I would have left the same, just minor tweaks. I mean, like, I'm not critiquing the whole card. I'm just saying WrestleMania 30 could have been really big if they would have had Bryan Punk. I think Punk would have been happy, and he might have still been with the company. And the fans, what it's about, me and you, the fans, I think would have been happy with that main event. Would have been thrilled about that main event, And then Undertaker Brock. I'm kind of scared to even comment on that one. If I have always went back and forth whether or not the streak would end, and maybe I'll do a video when it gets close to WrestleMania season and stuff starts to happen. I'm just keeping that fantasy booking. I would have kept that match the same. I'm not gonna say what the outcome should have been. Me personally, I would have liked to see the streak stay intact. I think it would have been wrong. And since this segment of this video is called fantasy booking, how I would have booked Undertaker's last match or whatever. JR said in his podcast, and I was thinking this even before he said that, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and say this, because I was thinking that before he said it on his podcast. He said that Undertaker's last match should be like a World Heavyweight title match at WrestleMania. It should be against John Cena, which I agree with that. And this is what I was thinking. His last match should have been against John Cena, win the title, retire the next day, or have him win, which would be stupid. But I think Undertaker's done so much, for wrestling. Why not just give him that undefeated? And Vince McMahon talked about in the Austin podcast, it's all about giving back, and no one wants to give back more than the Undertaker. Yeah, but why don't you give something back for him? Give something back to the Undertaker. I understand, it's about passing the torch, and my only problem with passing the torch to Brock Lesnar was he wasn't a full-time guy. He wasn't a full-time guy, and he said there's no one else on the roster down the road that he could see beat him. Well, down the road, who are you to say, like, who's going to be a big superstar down the road that could beat the Undertaker? That's like saying you don't believe in your writing. So are you admitting in a vague way, Vince, that you really are a stupid motherfucker now in your old age and you don't know what the fuck you're doing? Is that what you're saying? Because I'll be fine with that answer. Because seriously, it made no sense. I mean, he's like, oh yeah, and then Brock Lesnar and build Brock Lesnar. You don't have to build Brock Lesnar. He was already a big superstar at WrestleMania 30. He was a former UFC champion. He was the reason why he had that fame going in the UFC, because of WWE. He was already a big name. He was already a big attraction. You didn't need to have Brock Lesnar do that. If you really wanted to end the streak of The Undertaker, you guys could have did it with CM Punk the previous year, because they said, oh yeah, it's all about making someone red hot. Well, who was more red hot than CM Punk? And if you would have had him do that, holy shit, that would put CM Punk in the Hall of Fame status, which I think, he pretty much already kind of is in a Hall of Fame status, and close, maybe not quite there, maybe if he stayed around, but he's up there. He's up there. He's done a lot. I mean, that would have made sense. Brock Lesnar being off of television, how was that red hot? Because after that Undertaker match, he was pretty much gone until almost Survivor Series. Not Survivor Series, SummerSlam. My apologies. He was gone till almost SummerSlam. So, it didn't really make too much sense in that way. And another way they could have booked it is, let's say if they wanted to keep the streak going on a little longer. Okay, WrestleMania 30 happened. Let's say Undertaker beat Brock Lesnar. Okay, a whole year later, how about Bray Wyatt? Okay, they're kind of billing Bray Wyatt, not like the Undertaker. There's only one Undertaker, but Bray Wyatt's kind of becoming that dark force in wrestling, okay? Why not? I mean, you talk about a passing of the torch that'll really mean something, someone that will stay in wrestling long term, and you could always credit that. Like, Brock Lesnar is not going to be here in the next 5 years, okay? He's going to be a part-time wrestler here and there for the next couple of years. There's rumors that he's going to the UFC. You can't, that's not passing on to the next generation, Vince. He's like, oh yeah, it's all about giving back. That's not giving back for the future, Vince. You stupid fuck, it's a part-time wrestler. And I love Brock Lesnar to death, but it made no fucking sense. Okay? Now, here, if we would have Bray Wyatt, that would have made sense the next year. Not quite at 30 because he wasn't ready for it at 30. But now, he's been doing all this dark, crazy shit now, almost like The Undertaker. And if you would have had him, it would have shocked the fans. And that's saying if you wanted to end the streak. I personally would have left it intact. But I'm saying if you wanted to, then you know, Bray Wyatt is going to be here in the next 5 years. He's the future. He's one of the future superstars of WWE that they do have. Then that's something you could always credit him. Bray Wyatt winning breaking the streak of The Undertaker. And then it kind of makes sense because now he's taking over as kind of like the dark figure of wrestling. It would have made sense. And it kind of would have been about like that storyline going full circle, you know? Undertaker was always the dark, mysterious guy. Now he's passing the torch over to Bray Wyatt. Anyways, guys, this is going to conclude my first fantasy booking. I have ideas of what I'm going to do on future fantasy booking, I'm calling it. I'm also going to say how I would have ended future videos is how I would have ended the NWO angle. I'm going to get into that. That's going to be a future video, and I have a couple others in mind too. So until the next video, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you for the next one.